Hey everyone, this is God Krellick bringing you just a basic video on how to create a minimum server. This is going to be a step-by-step guide. This should be a fairly quick video. This is not going to show you the firewall port settings you'll need for minimum. That'll be a completely different video because of the details that may take time to get things set up. But let's go ahead and just go right into it and start up a minimum server. As you can tell, so with creating a minimum server, you don't actually have to have Steam installed on the machine, or you don't have to have, I guess, Steam going whatsoever in the background. It doesn't impact it one way or the other. Go ahead, I'm running a Windows 10 environment for those of you that are running anything different. It may be slightly different in where your folder locations are, but you can Google the differences between the file structures. But just go ahead and open up a file explorer within the Windows system that you have. Most of you are going to be in the C drive, your local hard drive. I have a backup drive that mine's located in, but I'll go ahead and walk through where you would find the file you would need to execute the server. So go ahead and click on local. For those of you that have a 32-bit system, there may only be one selection, but in mine is program files 86. And then go to Steam, then Steam apps, and then common. And then in common now, yours will be different. You more than likely will see minimum right here, okay? But for that being said, mine is, like I said, in the backup drive, so I'm just going to continue. Remember though, Steam apps, common, and don't worry about my Steam library, so Steam apps, common, and then minimum. So this is the part that you will see. You will see minimum in one of these areas here, okay? Yours will be in that local drive that you have. So click on minimum, and then go into binaries, and then minimum launcher.exe. This is the file, the executable that you want. Let's go ahead and double click on this. Now from here, this is the generic thing that will pop up that you will see, and in this right here you can type in, I'm going to type in Mount Othris test, and message, MOTD stands for message of the day, and I'm going to say this is a test. Alright, you create your admin password. I'm going to type in my super secret password. Alright, players are default set to 8. Let's go ahead and set that to 10 because 10 is the default size of most of the servers unless you're playing a horde mode. But most of the levels that you have access to right this second is going to be going to require a 5v5. Alright, I don't ever turn on friendly fire. You can change, I'm pretty sure, all of these settings except for the ports once you get into the game settings through the admins, but let's go ahead and just keep things kind of generic. Alright, so bot difficulty, I've changed it. It really doesn't change too much that I can tell. Maybe for a more beginner player it may be a little bit different. Team deathmatch, the game mode actually is dependent on the type of server that you're trying to create, or not type of server, but maps that you include in your server, okay? Dedicated is what you want. You can create a LAN. Listen, I'm not really sure. I just usually choose dedicated on this, okay? Most of you in the map cycle portion, I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. Should probably just see courtyard. You can add whichever maps you want to in rotation. I don't usually use this function because in the beginning it was messed up, okay? I don't know if it still is or not. I don't use it this way. I usually log in through my admin credentials and set the rotation that I want in the cycle that I want. Your listen ports, your Steam port, and your game port, you're all going to want to write down, okay? These are key ports that you will need to do in the firewall demo that I do later on, but I'm going to do that at a different time, alright? So from here, as you can tell, I have my server name, message of the day, admin password, my max players, goals, etc., 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 okay? Warm-up mode is already turned on by default. Even if I check it, I think it doesn't matter, but I'll show you how to disable that in another video as well. Let's go ahead. This is pretty simple. Once you know where to find the file, let's just go ahead and click Launch Server. Alright. This takes a few minutes to load up. I say a few minutes. Mine's pretty quick. And you'll know. So that is a good sign. The one thing that you will want to do is the very end here, it'll give a Steam server UID. That's how you know it was able to connect to Steam outbound and at least register. That does not mean that people can see it, but it does mean that it was able to become an active server that has been slightly authenticated here. Let's see if it's come up here. Oh, there it is. So Steam game server UID. There it is right there. Okay. The other things to think of is that it'll give you extra oh my gosh, it'll give you extra details up here on certain things. So you have your ports, your query ports, your game sessions all kind of right here, and that tells you, if you ever forget what port you use, you can do a quick reference of that. I'll show you some other steps on the firewall demo to show you some of the things that you need to set up. And as people log in, as you can tell, there's 0 players in this game server right now. As people join, this will go up, the base will change, and you'll see error logs or logs that keep coming up. Alright, so don't freak out if you see error responses or things of that manner in this log. Okay, that doesn't mean that there's an error in the system or the game's freaking out. It just means that some way or another there was a potential error, but your server is still functioning as long as this is up and running. Sometimes it'll come up and say, hey, there's a major error, and your server will crash randomly. It's a whole different scenario, different problems. But in this situation right here, your server is up and running. Alright, it doesn't mean, we haven't worked on the firewall settings, but while we're here, let me go ahead and show you a few other things that are important with the server. Alright, so if you go to wherever you have your My Documents, okay, go to My Games, go to whichever game you have. I have 2 different minimums for testing in here, but minimum is just my default minimum, and in is in minimum game, and then in logs. Okay, if you ever have a server going, these are the places to where you will be able to find specific logs to those servers. If you ever have an issue or ever have an error, you can go in and find out different things. It'll give you basic information. So this one here, this is the live one right now, so it'll tell you if there's anybody potentially hacking in the server. It'll actually give you a warning that there potentially is a hacker. I must forewarn you that it doesn't mean that the person is hacking. There could be latency issues, the servers stutter, the servers kind of freak out every now and then. 90% of the time, or higher, I would say, if it says somebody's hacking potentially, does not actually mean that person is hacking. Okay, there's a lot of information, so for those of you that actually want to know where those logs are, because in this stream here, it doesn't keep all the logs after a while. You can scroll up as far as you want to and down as far as you want to, and you're not going to be able to see all the information. But in these logs, it stores that information indefinitely. So that's one little thing. Also, save data. This is if you remove this, okay, it will reset your profile. So anything in here, do not remove it. Okay, don't mess with it. You can edit it if you want to, but your profile, if you have a lot of currency or all these weapons and everything, if you touch these files, they can disappear. Alright, there's just a bunch of numbers streamed together, and I'm sure there's potentially some encryption used for it that you can potentially decrypt at a later time. So config files, these are the files that you would use to potentially change some of the things. It's actually talked about in the player hosted server guide that's on the discussion forums on Steam. And in this, let me make sure I have this right, I don't want to mess up here. So there's a file here, I think I want to say, is it the minimum engine? Let's go to edit this real quick and see if this is it here. And of course, my computer may freak out here. Is this the one here? Okay, yes, I believe this is it here. So this will talk about your ports, your peer ports. This is one of the ports that isn't talked about in their game, but it's important to know about, and we'll talk about that later. So in this file here, you can look up, I think it is your password. So you set your password, alright? That's not the password I want. And that's the password it's just going to give to me right now. That's great. Maybe this isn't the actual one that I need here. So let's go back. Sorry, I've been doing some searching on some other things here. Let's go back to cloud. Nope, it's in this config file here. Let's go back to binary, make sure it's not in here. Yeah, it's not in the binary. Let's go back here, minimum game, config. This is probably it here. Yep, there it is. Okay, so in this here, I'm sorry about that for the rundown there, but the minimum game.ini that was located in the minimum game config here, okay? Let's just say you forget your server password for whatever reason and you can't remember things, okay? In here, there's all sorts of dynamic changes that you can do, but there's your super secret password. All right, so obviously I misspelled it, but that's what can happen. You misspell it, you forget about it. This is where your super secret password is. Okay, it's in this file. You can change it at any time. You have to restart the server for it to take effect, I believe, for that change. So just be careful when you're typing in certain passwords or trying to do demos of videos and things like that. Other than that, there's just a bunch of random stuff you can mess with if you eventually get bold enough to do so in here. That's pretty much that I want to show you on this video. I think I hope this really helps a little bit, just trying to get the game off the ground a little bit. The firewall configurations and everything, I'm going to do another video here shortly and hopefully have that up at the same time. So for those of you that have any additional questions on the server end from setting it up or potentially troubleshooting, just let me know and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks everyone and hope you enjoy.